Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Data here, back to back. We're back at it again. Thank you, everyone, for the comments. Who are those of you who are back in here? Lunchbox, missed you. Get back in here. Been too long. Back to back data from Mackenzie and Pasquale. Thank you very much, Vinny. Welcome back aboard. So, breaking news in NHL earlier this morning. It was pretty much back to back trades after the Dadonov and Gurionov move between the Canadiens and the Stars. The Vegas Golden Knights acquired Ivan Barbashev from the St. Louis Blues in exchange for Zachary Dean. Now, before we get into the analytics, my initial thoughts, as always, it's instant reaction and analysis. We're back at it again. Yes, we are. My initial thoughts are the St. Louis Blues are in a very interesting spot as they don't have to be sellers, but they are selling off their UFAs. They move away from Ryan O'Reilly, Vladimir Tarasenko, and Ivan Barbashev. And in exchange, they get a boatload of picks, prospects, and usable pieces to either add to their core that they have now, or to move and transfer and trade and leverage and use to acquire more picks at the draft, at the deadline, over the offseason, etc. Either way, it is a win-win for the Blues. When they first moved Tarasenko and O'Reilly, I was more of the thinking, I don't like what St. Louis is doing here because they didn't have to do it. But if you're going to go with the thinking that you were really 100% certain that O'Reilly and Tarasenko were not coming back, well, then absolutely get value for them. For Ivan Barbashev, I've been reading that there is a lot of love between Barbashev's camp and Armstrong and the St. Louis Blues. So it's not uncommon to say, oh, maybe, he comes back in free agency. This is one of those cases where if I had to put money on one of these players at the deadline who are getting traded coming back next season, Ivan Barbashev back to the Blues seems to be the most likely of all of those. So the Vegas Golden Knights acquire him. He's fast, he hits, he has great potential. He did very well last season, not having the worst year this year either, but last season, amazing stuff from Barbashev. And in exchange, though, it comes at a costly price here. No, good point. Tarasenko likely wasn't re-signing. We don't know everything that was going on behind closed doors, but that was likely the case. It comes at a costly price now because the Vegas Golden Knights, although he was the 30th overall pick, Zachary Dean gets moved. And this now, since their first year drafting back in 2017, so 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, in the last 6 drafts, they've had 6 first-round picks. I think they had 3 in their first year, and they had none in other years. But Nick Suzuki, Eric Brandstrom, I'm going off the top of my head here, Peyton Krebs, Cody Glass, and now Zach Dean. Yes, I believe those are the 5 right there. Suzuki, Glass, Krebs, Brandstrom, and Dean. 5 out of the 6 of their first-round picks in the last 6 years have now been traded. It's very interesting to see that. And yes, they're a good team. Yes, they're trying to go on deep runs here, but it's coming at a price. It's going to cost Vegas down the road. They're going to be like what people thought an expansion team would be in a few years, when a team like Seattle, who struggled in their first year, will be soaring, for example, and even years from now as well. Let's see. Some initial thoughts before getting to the analytics. Lunchbox, Tarasenko has wanted out for a couple of years now, so he was the most likely one that you could definitely guarantee wasn't coming back. O'Reilly might have re-signed, yes. So Dabrowski, getting into the thoughts here on the deal. I believe the Blues won this. Barbashev has had a terrible year. I don't know if I'd go that far. 29 points in 59 games and a negative 29. Okay, that I'll give you. They got an interesting prospect in Zach Dean, who's having a great year with Les Olympiques de Gatineau. And Lunchbox still thinks that there's a possibility that ROR comes back to St. Louis. At worst, it's 50-50, but I do think Barbashev has a good chance of him coming back. Prehistoric. Do you think the Blues give up Rangers first and Toronto's first and Zachary Bolduc for Timo Meier? Do you think this could happen? Not that it wouldn't happen, but it seems as though Timo Meier to New Jersey is the most likeliest of things, and Timo Meier to Vegas is the second most likely thing. St. Louis is probably third in the running for Timo Meier right now. I could see it. I could see that being a decent package. They want a prospect to pick and a roster player. So 2 firsts and Bolduc for Timo Meier. Yeah, I could see that. but I don't think it's going to happen. I think there's a package with the Devils that will end up coming together within the next 24 hours at most. So let's get it done here. Let's get into the thoughts. Ivan Barbashev, let's see what the J Fresh card has to say about him. That's usually a good place for a starting off point. Barbashev, acquired by Vegas, is a playmaking middle six forward who shoots the puck very rarely, but occasionally shows a nice scoring touch. Defensive issues limit his effectiveness as a center, for sure. -29. I don't usually put a lot of stock into plus minus, but if you're a plus 29, there's likely a bit of something to say about that, right? So Barbashev, over the last 3 years, weighted average data in the 45th percentile, projected wins above replacement, 55th percentile of even strength offense, horrible for defense, but above average for goals per 60, way above average for primary assists per 60, and still above average for drawing penalties, playing against high levels of competition. He has good teammates. He finishes well. Obviously, last season was his best in terms of overall wins above replacement. He was an above average, slightly above average player. Now, this season bringing him down. If we look at his current microstats card, we see that this year, not too much different from his last 3 years of weighted data. 56th percentile of even strength offense, 12th of defense. All this stuff, a lot of this stuff in the toilet. 5th percentile for shots, 6th percentile for rush shots, but that's not what he's there to do. What he's there to do is chance assists, primary shot assists, in zone shot assists, rush shot assists, zone entries, zone exits. That's all great. The other parts of his game that are lacking behind, it's not that he gets away with it. Not that we excuse him for it, but at the same time, that's not part of his game. As a center, there is more responsibility, but that's not what he's there to do. He throws the body around. He's young. He's quick. He passes very well. He had an amazing season last year. If we go and check out the stats right here, Ivan Barbashev last season, I think people forget about how good last season was sometimes. 60 points in 81 games. A guy who over his 82-game career, even with that 60-point season, is only at 36 points per 82 games in his career. This is a guy who put up 60 points last season with a great team, with the great years of Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou. He had 160 hits as well. This year, through 59 games, 132 hits. So he throws the body around. He is... no, he's not -29. He has 29 points. I misread that. My apologies. He says -10. So you know what? I take back what I say about the plus minus then. -10, that's not so bad. Triple that to almost -30. Maybe there's something going wrong here. But nonetheless, forget the plus minus. His even strength defense is still in that 12th percentile for this year. So 29 points in 59 games. Divide that, multiply. That gives him a pace of over an 82-game season. That'll give him a pace of 4 points on the year. Not bad. It would be better. It would be the second best season of his career, technically. But that's about all there is to say about Ivan Barbashev. Passes well, he hits, he's fast, he eats ice time. It's not like he's doing this in low numbers of ice time. He gets his chances out there. Not quite finishing on the Blues. The Blues have had their trouble with their finishers this year as well, so that plays a role. His overall ice time is a bit lower than he's been used to, but he's still getting his chances out there. So I like this trade for Vegas, absolutely. Let me pull up the numbers in just a moment here. I'll switch back to here. I see there's a lot of comments coming in from all of you, so I want to see what you have to say out there. 3N5Z out of the 3 traded. Tarasenko's not coming back. O'Reilly might come back, and Barbashev is probably coming back. Yeah, that's well said. Lunchbox concurs with that as well. He's a really solid player. Hope that we get him back. Some thoughts on Timo Meier as well. Okay, so what I want to just do now is I want to pull up Vegas on Cap Friendly so we can also see their depth chart. I want to see how they look. The Blues at the moment, they don't recoup a pick, but they get a good piece in Zach Dean. He is well above point per game in the QMJHL, which isn't usually a huge accomplishment for a player of his age and prestige. So I wouldn't say he's a blue chip prospect, but he's a good player right there. I don't put a lot of stock in plus minus. Absolutely. Maddie, you read my mind here. I was only saying if it was -30, then I could say maybe there's something to say on it, but -10, no, I don't put much stock into that. If a team is playing weak, it makes sense that the whole team will suffer. I'm sure Ryan O'Reilly also didn't have good plus minus either. No, he didn't. But look at the kind of numbers he's putting up as a Leaf. Yeah, thank you for clarifying that, Maddie. So let's go over to what The Vegas Golden Knights over on Cap Friendly. Switch the screen over here. So over on Vegas, we see that they have, now $0 of projected cap space. It's pretty tight over here. We'll get into the Blues and Kapanen in just a moment. So I do like that they've retained most of their draft picks. Well, let me rephrase that. Most of their top 3 picks in the next 3 years. Of the next 3 years, they've only missed out on a 2023 second, and they've recouped a 2023 third. They've also missed out on a fourth, a fifth, another fourth, but they haven't used too much of their draft capital, and I like that when they've used so many of their drafted prospects, right? So Barbashev comes in at a $2.25 million cap hit. I think the team is pretty much set at this point. They're the runners-up right now at the moment for Timo Meier, but I'd be surprised if Timo goes to Vegas. I think it's pretty much going to happen. He's going to New Jersey. So the first line at the moment, let's say it's Smith, Eichel, and Marchessault. Second line, you could say maybe, I don't know, Paul Carter's been playing up there. If Carter's on the second line with Carlson and Barbashev. Third line, William Carrier with Stevenson and Phil Kessel. Fourth line, Amadio, Howden, and Keegan Kolsar. And that's with Nicolas Roy and Mark Stone and all these guys injured at the moment. But a lot of steady pieces in Vegas. I like the William Karlssons of the world. I like the Jonathan Marchessaults of the world. Jack Eichel's been doing well this season, 43 points in 46 games. Maybe you want more from him. But add in Barbashev as a great playmaker right here with Riley Smith, who has almost 20 goals on the year. He's second in team scoring. Barbashev will be a great addition to the top 6. Worst case, you play him middle 6, but I think he could definitely be a top 6 guy for Vegas. And I like all of the peripherals that we saw on the micro stats card. Looking at Zach Dean now, the player that the Blues get back from Vegas. Let's pull up his screen here over on Hockey DB. So we see that he was the 30th overall pick in 2021, 49 points in 38 games this year with Les Olympiques de Gatineau. He had 52 points in 47 games last season. He's a couple of years since getting drafted. The last couple of years. He was on Team Canada, and of course, at the World Juniors, he had 3 points in 7 games and 33 penalty minutes. So that was, I'd call that an anomaly. But I am also interested to note there about Vegas's first-round picks, as I was mentioning earlier. Let me go to they only have one left. They only have one prospect first-round pick selected left, and that's Brendan Brisson. Brendan Brisson, who was drafted 29th overall. So they no longer have Glass. They no longer have Suzuki. So even if we break it down, Eric Brandstrom became Mark Stone, or part of the Mark Stone deal, LTIR. Nick Suzuki for Max Pacioretty, and they dumped him for free. Cody Glass went to a swap with Nolan Patrick. He's on LTIR. Peyton Krebs, that's probably the biggest, where the player was actually, I take that back. Suzuki was the biggest piece of the Pacioretty package, but Peyton Krebs with Alex Tuck for Jack Eichel. Krebs is doing pretty well in Buffalo. Jack Eichel, first line centerman. All right, we'll say that's a success. Brisson is still in the system. Zach Dean moves for Barbashev, and no other first round picks aside from that. So Vegas definitely going all in. They still have a lot of good pieces. Chaika's a good second round pick. In their first draft, they had Nick Hague, who's been playing a full-time defenseman for them. That was a great pick. Leschyshyn didn't really work out, but I wouldn't say Vegas is like, I don't know. Like the last 3 years, they still have none of those players have played any games in the NHL, which still give them some time, but I wouldn't say Vegas has been making a name for themselves in terms of a great drafting team. 2018, only one player, Paul Cotter, who's playing right now, has debuted in the NHL. 2019, only 3 players, only one with more than like a handful of games. 2019, 0. 2021, 0. 2022, 0. So Vegas, they got to make those picks count if they want their team to be held afloat by in the future once these current pieces move on, right? So we get to the Blues getting Kapanen in a second. Dabrowski-Diego leaving a comment saying, although they lost big names like ROR, Senko, and Barbie, there's no doubt that St. Louis is trying to do something here by rebuilding off of upcoming prospects. This year is the beginning of the retool. St. Louis, they could be an extremely scary team come a couple years from now because their top 4 is locked in. Kyrou, Thomas, all these guys are locked in. add in some of these prospects or the players that will be added from the picks that they've recouped. And my goodness, yeah, absolutely. So the Blues, at first, I wasn't sure what they were doing, but it sounds like they have a plan. They're going to take a step back this year, retool, and come back stronger a year or two from now. It might hurt a little bit to say that we have players in their prime who are kind of just festering away in retooling seasons, but it will likely be worth it in the long run, in my opinion. 3N5Z. I feel Seattle will see more future success than Vegas. I could see that as well. Vegas has had the immediate success, and Seattle may have to have that delayed gratification a little bit. So St. Louis now has $1.687 million in cap space. They have 3 first-round picks in this loaded draft, two thirds, but no second. And they also have 2 seconds and 2 fourths in next year's draft, with more to come, I would think. Maybe they even move some of these pieces, as I was saying earlier. But Kasperi Kapanen, he's an interesting piece because he's not just signed this year, he's also signed next year. So you know what? I like it for St. Louis because if you're going to remove 3 forwards from your top 6 or your top 9, you can't start saying, hey, Nathaniel Walker and Josh Lievo, can you just slot in and be a doll and slot in for 16 minutes of ice time per night? No, as much as Kapanen has been struggling, and Vasi, welcome to the stream, buddy. Great to hear from you. Hope you're doing well. You got to get players, even Kapanen, who's been struggling, you got to get players who are able to eat those minutes, are able to perform, who have shown the ability to perform, even if they're struggling right now, and players who hopefully when you pair them with your stars will be able to benefit. So I like this move a lot for the St. Louis Blues, mainly because of the 3 guys that moved out. If they weren't moving out those 3 guys, it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense, but they need capable bodies filling in their top 6 and top 9. And I like that a lot. Jay Fresh probably had a card on Kapanen if I scroll down a little bit. It's not going to be a pretty one, but if we scroll down a little bit, I'm sure we'll get Kapanen's card. I would think he's in the single digits for wins above replacement. Of course, the Nito Niederreiter trade dropping yesterday as well. I didn't go live for that one, but I love that move for the Winnipeg Jets, another player who has term. Kapanen, so this season, do we have the microstats on him for this year? Over the last 3 years, actually, we can see there it's around 25th percentile. All right, so I think it's more recent struggles for Kapanen. The last 3 years, weighted average, great primary assists per 60, but projected wins above replacement has gone from the 75th percentile all the way down to like the 25th percentile. So if he still has those, goals and primary assists per 60, despite all of that, give him some better line mates. Look at the teammates, right? He was getting 4th line time on ice, the equivalent of 4th line time on ice. Give him better teammates, lift that up from the 13th percentile, the teammates that he's playing with. And I think that these numbers will follow suit. I'm not saying he'll go back to prime Kapanen. I'm not sure about that. But I think that he will do much better on St. Louis than what he was doing in Pittsburgh. So let's go back to what the comments here say. Let me hear what all of you have to say. Just put Barbashev on Vegas in my sim. Didn't go great. Well, after all the trades at the deadline are decided, I'm going to run a simulation of the postseason, not of the postseason, just of a season. And then once the postseason begins, we'll do one of those as well. What pick do you think the Blues will get this draft if they keep their own pick, prehistoric? It's hard to make predictions like that when it comes to things like the draft lottery. But if we just, I was about to peek in the standings as well. So if we can say that we forget the draft lottery, assume that the Blues are not winning the draft lottery, and we just look at the league standings. Let's pull this up here. Give me a second. If we can say that, if we can rule out the draft lottery, because anything can happen in there. If we just look at St. Louis with their performance and how we think the next 20, 25 games of the season will go, takes a while for NHL.com to always load this up. Looking at the rest of your comments while this loads, Maddie's saying prospects are just unseen talent. They will only be as good as their development team. Look at the brutal job the Kraken have done so far with Wright. If you have a great support system, they develop better. With Wright, it was an unfortunate situation with Wright as they were trying to loan him and then hold on to him till the juniors maybe. It's kind of been bobbled a little bit. There's still a lot of time to wait and see what happens with Shane Wright, so I wouldn't call it a disaster just yet, but it hasn't been the greatest start between the Kraken and Shane Wright, in my opinion. But look at Matty Beniers, right? As 3N5Z says. So the Blues now, let's see where the Blues are. Where am I going? 24th in the NHL right now with 59 games played. I don't think they'll be able to climb much higher than this. I know Nashville is probably going to drop a little bit now, but I don't know if I see the Flyers or the Canadiens. This is kind of the order that I see the season finishing in. Columbus at the bottom, Anaheim second last. I think anywhere from Chicago, San Jose, and Arizona will make up 3 to 5. And then I think Vancouver is likely 6. Then Montreal, Philadelphia, St. Louis makes up 7 to 9. That's kind of what I see. So if the Blues keep their pick, I think best case scenario is Montreal and Philadelphia pass them and they can pick 7th. I think worst case scenario is 9th or 10th. That's what I would think at this time with about 20, for the Blues, they have 23 games left this season. That's what I'm thinking at the moment. But you never know who catches fire and who falls apart once the deadline passes and we really know who's who, right? There's always the potential for that. Going to the wild card now, I just want to look at the Western Conference standings for a moment. It's 6-4 Buffalo against Washington right now. Sheesh. Blue Jackets up 2-0 over Minnesota as well. Jack's not going to like that one. So in the Eastern Conference, we've been talking about this a lot. I think in the East that everything's just about locked up to that first wild card spot. I would say it's Pittsburgh, Buffalo, Detroit, Florida. Yeah, that's it. Fighting for that second wildcard spot. Washington looks like they're in it, but I would assume that they continue to drop off without Orlov and as they continue to just let it go a little bit. Over in the Western Conference, though, Vegas, as much as they're solidified for the postseason, they would like to win the Pacific Division. LA is, nipping at their heels. You have Edmonton, who's been struggling defensively very badly, so that's saving Vegas a little bit because their offense is incredible. Edmonton has scored 38 goals more than Vegas through just one more game. Over in the Central, Dallas is going to be trying to win their division now with Dadonov added in, but Colorado and Winnipeg, any of these three could win the Central. I think the Pacific is really just between Vegas and Los Angeles. Seattle and Minnesota, I would think that's the West as well. I unfortunately don't see Calgary making the postseason. They're the only ones that might. Nashville down, no postseason for you, unfortunately. That's what I got to say. So that's looking at the standings. Do the Dadonov and Barbashev trades necessarily change much in terms of the postseason rankings? I don't think so. These are already teams that are doing very well. It's just their depth moving forward and their ability to, especially on Dallas, where you can say Tyler Seguin's been struggling. Maybe Dadonov can get some playmaking going. Maybe that gets a little jolt of energy. On Vegas, where there's been so many injuries, Mark Stone, let's bring Barbashev in. So it's filling the holes, but hopefully it's more than that. Hopefully it's also adding the depth. Looking at back to the comments here, Dabrowskiego, St. Louis is like the story of the 2019 Washington Nationals. Shout out to the Expos. Won the championship and fell down as the years went on, unfortunately, but could possibly rise soon. Yeah. What do you think of Jimmy Snugro? Blues drafted him last year, 23rd overall, and played very well in the juniors. Yeah, I like Snugro. I have him in our franchise mode in terms of he's a creative player in our franchise mode on HL 23. I like him a lot for the Blues. So don't forget they're bringing in pieces, but they also already have pieces of their own. So yeah, I do like Snugro a lot. I think that he's going to start. I think he'll be in the NHL within 2 years from now. I don't know if next season would be it. But again, like I said, they need players next season. That's what Kapanen is. They need reliable players. Do they want to bring Snuggerud in when they're still in the retool phase? That's for management to decide. Colorado, I feel 3N5Z. I feel Avalanche win the Central. The other teams have been struggling, but maybe the Jets and the Stars trade keep them out. Maybe the Jets, you take out Perfetti and you add Niederreiter. I think the Jets still need to do a bit more. I love the trade for the Jets, but I still think they need to do more out of first. That is, keep them out of first. Avalanche, we'll see. So I think that's about it for my thoughts in terms of the Barbashev deal. I like it for Vegas and I love it for the Blues because they get a former first round pick. And they hopefully say, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, see you in the offseason to Ivan Barbashev. And let me clarify, I like it for Vegas in terms of getting Barbashev, but I don't like this trend of trading 5 of your 6 drafted first overall picks in the last 6 years of existence. 6 years of existence, 6 first round picks, 5 of them traded, 0 Stanley Cups. I know they're an expansion team and all that, but they want to be seen as a contending team. Well, there you go. If you want to be seen as a contending team, you got to also take the consequences. You've traded 5 first-round pick prospects, and you've had one Stanley Cup final, but not much else to show for it, right? What team do you think has the best prospect pool? That'll be a video for another day probably. But if I just have to go off the top of my head, oh boy, the best prospect pool. Maybe if I'm looking at just pulling up the NHL standings here, so I can just get a reminder of some teams here before my brain explodes. I love the Kings prospect pool, which is turning into a young players pool. I think the Kings have one of the strongest pools in the league. I think the Ducks have a strong prospect pool. I think, let me see. I think the Red Wings have a fairly strong prospect pool. And I'd say that's probably, and even the Devils, if I could say young player pool. I'd have to sit down and think about that a bit more. Patrick Kane trade incoming or Timo Meier next? I would say Timo Meier is next. I'd say that's within, we use this term the next 24 hours. I would think it's by the end of today. I'll be really upset if it happens in the middle of the workday tomorrow on Monday. I wouldn't be surprised, but I'll be upset. I would think it happens by the end of the day. Timo Meier to the Devils, even, I would say. That time will tell on that one. Patrick Kane, it seems as though that will likely be on Wednesday, March 1st at the very earliest, maybe on deadline day, just because of having to move things around, money, waivers, all the logistics and hoops to go through. But I would say Patrick Kane to New York is more of a done deal than Timo Meier to New Jersey. But Timo Meier to New Jersey will happen before Patrick Kane to New York, if that makes sense, right? That's what I have to say about those trades. Maddie, if they can't develop prospects, what's the point in grabbing prospects? Look at Edmonton's history, excluding McDavid. Right, that's a fair point. They haven't been doing well in in-house development. Look at all their very high first-rounders that have failed. That's a very fair point. You got to make sure they're developed well. So we'll go ahead and end it off there, ladies and gentlemen. Possibly not the last data cast of the day. Make sure that you're subscribed for breaking news and analysis in the real world of hockey. So leave a like if you did enjoy this breakdown. If you're watching after the fact, leave a comment with your thoughts. Join us over in the Discord server where we're always discussing breaking news and all that good stuff. We'd love to have you join in on the team. Dabrowski next Sharks franchise mode. I'm actually going to record right now. If there's no more trades today, I can have a peaceful evening. I might be able to get it uploaded for tomorrow. If I got to go breaking news and more stuff and I'm jammed up a little, the latest will be Tuesday. Tuesday, the February the 28th will be the latest for the next franchise mode episode of the Sharks. Earliest tomorrow, latest day after tomorrow. That'll be for the Sharks franchise mode. But I'm sure we'll be talking soon here on the channel. Thank you for taking the time to watch, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy your Sunday afternoon. Have yourselves a great rest of your weekend, and we will talk soon. Good night.